Hello and welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 42. Today, John and I talk with Rick Kiely about changing his game plan and his 2-buck October. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. Today we are joined by a buddy of ours, Rick Kiely from New York. We're talking about the magic Midas touch he had during October. Killed 2 great deer in October. We wanted to try to get him on a little earlier, but schedules as they were just weren't going to permit for that, so we're bringing him in now to talk about his awesome October hunt. The dude saw more deer in October and then, I don't know, probably than I did the entire season, to be quite honest. But before we jump into that, I am joined by my esteemed colleague, as always, Mr. Johnny Utah. What's going on, brother?
What is happening, big dog?
Oh, man. I feel like a little dog today. I feel like a little dog in a... hold on. I should start this over. Words. That was bad, man. I was gonna go for some witty comment, and I just totally fumbled it. That was terrible, wasn't it?
Yeah. It happens.
I think I was trying to say I feel like a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. There we go. That works.
Yep.
But otherwise, I'm okay. I guess I got a discount on pants, maybe, if I only need one leg. But what's going on with you, man?
It is mid-swing, first season, shotgun season here in Iowa. Mm-hmm. I think today was day 3, and so far, my number 1, and I'm fearful that my number 3 hit list bucks have been killed by the Army of Orange.
Man, I can. I feel your pain, man. We were just talking a little bit before we hopped on the record here, and kind of lamenting, our situations with the deer that we've been kind of watching and what happens to them, and it's one of those things, man. It's tough being a bow hunter sometimes, man. Especially I'll say this: whenever folks around you don't, or that you hunt with, sometimes I think it even goes as far as you hunt with, to a certain degree, don't practice the same type of approach that you do, or a similar approach. It makes things exponentially more difficult. I mean, it's challenging enough as it is as a bow hunter, and then to kind of add that on top of it is brutal. I know I posted here, I guess it was this past week, that the guy that I was watching for a couple years, that Deer Lucky, even though I forewent the hunts for him this year because I knew I was only going to really get one crack at him, so I kind of called off the hunt for him after I had the one encounter with him and knew that I probably wasn't going to get another one until maybe late season. But it's confirmed he was taken just this week in Pennsylvania's rifle season. A good buddy of mine took him, so I'm super stoked for him. But that wasn't, I know what we were talking about before we jumped on the phone here, or before we jumped on the call here, was, that wasn't so much the bigger issue. It was, we've done some property management stuff on this piece of ground with habitat and food plots and stuff like that, and we've actually been able to grow some decent deer the past. I'd say this was the first year we really started seeing the fruits of our labor, where we started getting some younger deer that were looking good, that probably just needed another year, and we were going to have a really good crop of shooters, where it's not like a single shooter that we would have, where it would be like you would have 4 and maybe 5 deer that you would be happy to take, and they've all been killed. I got text message pictures of each of them, and they were all taken by family and friends that hunt this property. Don't begrudge them having a good time, but man, it's a tough pill to swallow.
Sure.
I don't know. How about you, man? How you feeling?
Well, it's always been one of those things. I mean, yes, I'm a diehard bow hunter. I love the sport, the conservation of hunting. I love the heritage, the pastime. Let's just throw that out there and get that out of the way,
Right. That's kind of like the check the box, man. It's like anyone who knows you and spends any time talking to you or watching the work that you do or anything like that. It's like those things are or very apparent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, it's kind of, but then there's always that but. Remember at Talladega Nights, with all due respect, well, you can't just say whatever you want to say, but I said with all due respect.
Hold on. I want to stop you right there because you realize this is 2 podcasts in a row where we referenced Talladega Nights. The last one was me calling my wife the Stone Cold Fox at Thanksgiving for Grace, which happened again this year.
Maybe not in open forums, in closed door, talking with the buddies and via text messages and whatnot. John's true feelings, I am not a fan of shotgun driving.
Yeah.
For the following reasons. 1, it's dangerous. Mm-hmm. 2, I'm not saying that there isn't shotgun driving groups that don't have the same values as my take on deer management, and the desire to harvest mature deer. Right. I'm sure there is a ton of shotgun driving groups that's what they do. But it does seem like there is a large percentage of shotgun driving groups that they get the reputation. If it's brown, it's down. Mm-hmm. Well, I saw a buck running. I didn't really know what buck it was. I just shot.
Right.
So, in the last couple of days, like I said, my number 1 hit list deer was taken. Congrats to the guy that got him. He's a beauty. He'll be in the upper 60s. He might even break 70 on a gross. But I still think he will be 165 or better net. Good buck. I could have shot this deer on October 26th. He didn't present me what I was looking for. It was a pretty hard quarter 2 shot. I didn't want to take the shot. I didn't want to risk it. He's a good enough deer, and I'm not saying that any deer is worth a bad shot, but that's not how I wanted to take the deer. Right. I wanted a good broadside shot, and he didn't present it. But I'll be honest, looking at him at that stage, and it could have been the angle that I was looking at, it had me second guessing his age on the hoof, because we all talk about trail cameras versus on the hoof sightings.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I made the decision that I wasn't going to shoot the deer. Once he trotted off, then I got confirmation. No, he definitely is mature. And I grunted at him. He kind of came back towards me, but again, didn't give me a clean shot. It got too dark on me to take the shot. So nonetheless, he was taken, and that's awesome. I'm glad that the guy took him. But my concern is, is everybody shooting the same number of does that they are bucks? Right. Knowing from in this area close to my house, from trail cameras and on the hoof observations, deer numbers are down, drastically down. Does and bucks. More does than bucks. As far as what's down, bucks are down more so than does.
Right.
Nonetheless, I was going to be very, very choosy about deer that I took this year. Lots of potential, lots of 2 and 3 year old up and comers, several that I passed this year. And, you hear it all too often. Well, man, I really thought that buck was bigger.
Right.
I'm like, well, then, make a decision before you shoot. And again, it goes back to the reason why I don't shotgun drive. These deer are running. It's hard enough to make a shot on a deer that's standing still, much less a running deer.
Yeah, so, exactly. And it's hard to tell what you're shooting at, too. The thing is,
when they're running and I can't really tell because his body's stretched out, so I don't know if he's a big mature deer or not. I'm shooting. I like to be able to study the deer. And if a guy can see a deer running 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, and determine, I know who that is. That's Snoopy. He's a 5.5-year-old. You know what I mean? More power to him. And he can take a shot on a running deer like that and ethically hit exactly where he wants to hit every time, that's awesome. But
Right.
I'm just not that good, with a shotgun to take running shots like that. So it's not something that I do. And again, I don't want to. I'm not trying to bash shotgun hunters, because I know everybody's got their reason. Well, that's what I was raised to do. It's a heritage thing. It's a pastime thing. I'm not criticizing people that shotgun hunt. But I am kind of criticizing the sport of it, the practice of it. I think it's unsafe. I mean, you can hit another hunter.
Yeah.
How many deer are you wounding? How many times are you having to shoot it? I've heard stories. Last year, there was a group of shotgun hunters that described shooting this buck like 5 times. Well, I shot him once in the front leg and I took his elbow out, and then he was hopping and I ran up and I put another shot on him and I got the other leg. So now he was just pushing his body with his back feet, and then I shot him in the neck.
Right.
And it kind of paralyzed him a little bit. And then I ran up and shot him. I'm like, geez, oh, peas. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, this just sounds gruesome to me.
Right. I mean, my thing is this: is like, just to put it bluntly, it's like, again, it's like, I'll caveat it saying the same thing that you said. It's like, look, I'm into everyone having an opportunity to hunt the way that they want to hunt. Right. It's it's good to have a voice, or for hunters to have an amplified voice. More people in the woods, enjoying the outdoors, enjoying the sport and stuff like that. It's all good. So I want to check that box before I kind of start saying what I'm going to say here. Right.
Isn't it sad, though, we have to be that politically correct, though?
I know. It's like, I can't just come out and say how I feel, because it might offend somebody and they could get angry about it.
I know. And you don't want somebody to take what you're saying the wrong way,
Right, because I'm not saying that I don't want you to have a good time. That is not what I'm saying.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, couldn't be the furthest thing from what I'm trying to say. I'm just, mine, I think, is I don't like drive hunting in general. So in Pennsylvania, we have rifle hunting, because we have mountains that will stop bullets and terrain and stuff like that. So here we're using rifles with scopes and so forth. But there's still a lot of deer drives that go on, especially in the areas that I grew up. I think a little less out here where I live now, because you just don't have the big, vast farmland that you do back home, where I grew up. But I'm just not down with it. Like, there's a couple reasons. There's a safety aspect of it, number one. Even when I did used to gun hunt, I still always felt slightly unsafe in the woods, even though I was always hunting on family property. Because it was just, everyone would pile onto this one piece of property, and everyone kind of thought they knew where the good spots were, so everyone wanted to kind of be around those good spots. And it's like, you're rifle hunting and you're going to sit 200 yards away from me. You know what I mean? It's like your rifle is very capable of making its way to me. You know what I mean? The bullet.
Yeah.
So I'm not down with deer driving. And one of the other reasons too is, this is what I explained to, well, 2 things, I guess. One is, I understand that some people, that's how they grew up and it's their heritage and stuff like that. And I'm not saying if that's how you want to hunt, then, if you have land and that's how you want to hunt the land, and that's fine, right? Like, if it's, I don't agree with it, but there's not a whole lot I can say about it, right? Mine, I think, goes to when you have a group of hunters that hunt a property together, where some people have managed the property, right? In my case, that has done work in food plots and habitat management, and has watched and passed deer and watched them grow for a couple years, and only for other folks to come in at a different part of the season, and having not done any of the habitat work or put any of the sweat in, or put any sweat equity in, and then drive off the mountain in the hollows and wax a bunch of deer, and this is the part that might piss some people off, but and harvest deer that they would never be able to harvest that if they had to legitimately hunt that deer. Like, sure. I think that's the part that, like, kind of gets me, is that there's not a strategy behind it. There's not you outwitting the animal. And that's part of, for me, like, is the allure of bow hunting. It's like, it's not the weapon per se. It's the chess match and the limitations that the weapon provides. You know what I mean? Like, that's the part to me that says that, yeah, I'm whatever type of hunter I am. I'm a good hunter. I'm not a good hunter, whatever. It's like, I'm not really into, like, trying to rank myself as to how proficient or how good I am. But it's like, I want to do battle with that animal. You know what I mean? And to me, when you hunt in that manner, and again, I'm not trying to discredit anybody, it's just for me personally, right? It's like, to me, you've taken the strategy and the challenge away from it.
Yep.
Which to me then it's like, I kind of look at, when I get a text message from a buddy who's harvested something with a gun, with a rifle, it's like, I'm always like, oh, it's a great deer. I'm just not, I don't get as excited as if they would have taken it with a bow, because I would know more that was like, there was some serious effort and thought that went behind that harvest, where this one was likely sat in a spot and someone drove a ridge off or whatever, and a deer came running by because he was running for cover. It's always, this is how I frame it. Right before rifle season, I get the same question from my family: is that, are you going to rifle hunt this year? And my answer always is no. And they ask me, well, first the question is why not? And I say, well, just because it's not something that, it doesn't do it for me anymore. If I'm going to take my vacation time to hunt, I want to use my bow. That's just my personal preference. And then the next question I always get, because it's always the question at deer camp, is, well, where should I sit? And my response is the same every year, and it's like, it pisses people off, because I say it doesn't really matter, because there's no strategy involved after about 8:30 and the first gun cracks. You know what I mean? I was like, the only strategy involved is in the morning if you're going to try to catch something coming back from feeding. You know what I mean? I was like, because once that first gun cracks, there's so much scent in the woods in PA with the amount of pressure that's in the timber that there is no strategy anymore. I was like, so your best bet is just go to the thickest cover and park your ass in front of the thickest cover and wait for something to run for their life to try to get away. I was like, that's the strategy, you know? And so that's my rant. That's kind of how I feel about it. Again, it's like, those who that's what they like to do, then that's awesome. There's the one other thing that I'll say, and I don't know how truthful this is. I don't want it to be taken as truth per se. But what I see, at least, right? And, whether it's on social media, online, or whatever, a lot of the stigma and the challenges that we have as hunters to overcome with the general public is often from that brown it's down, deer driving kind of mentality, right? And I don't want to paint with a broad brush and say it's anyone who doesn't hunt with a bow is a problem, because that's not the truth. That's not what I'm saying. But if you just take your own group of friends and family as an example, right, and go, I have friends who are diehard bow hunters, right, and look at how they represent and present hunting when they're talking to other people, right, and how they kind of carry themselves, and then look at the group that is not, that are more of the rifle shotgun only variety. I'm going to go out and hunt 2 days a year, the first 2 days, and go to deer camp. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Nothing wrong with it. But look at how they approach hunting, and how they would have the same conversation about harvesting a deer versus the person who harvested it with a bow. And tell me which conversation is going to be one that is going to make people misunderstand who hunters are, or which conversation is going to likely help people understand who hunters are.
I was on a plane ride. This was probably two years ago. I was on a plane ride, and it was a flight that was like 1 a.m. boarding. So for the most part, everybody got on and everybody was just out, right. Lights out. I ended up sitting next to one of the flight attendants. She was sitting next to me, and very friendly, struck up a conversation. Hey, what do you do? So went through career paths and current career paths, and she goes, "Oh, well, I'm against hunting." And I said, "Well, let me explain." She said, she goes, "Well, first off, how do you hunt?" And so that's when I said, let me explain, and I painted the picture for her, studying, topography and trail cameras and food plots, and so that all the deer that I don't harvest are all healthier. But I talked about, and I pulled up my laptop and I said, "See this deer here? This is a 3-year-old. I had him on. He was broadside. Could have flung an arrow at him. Decided I wanted to let him go to mature and reach potential. And I said, this is the deer that I decided that I wanted to take. And I explained the hunt, the process of the hunt, and the strategy that went behind it, and the reasons why I did it. And I even talked about tasty backstraps. So she goes, the way you just explained that, the picture that you just painted was that, like, you went to battle. You know, you went to battle and you harvested the deer, and you know, I think anybody will say that shooting with a bow is a tougher way to harvest an animal.
Certainly.
And she said, you know, my experience was with there was a bunch of drivers in her area, and they were rifle and shotgun drivers. And she's like, I used to hear these stories about how they would take pop shots at running deer, and maybe they wounded it, maybe they didn't. Sometimes 7 or 8 people shot it at the same time. They didn't really know whose tag was going to go on it. And she's like, you know, that's where I developed kind of the bad taste in my mouth for hunting. But bow hunting, she goes, to me, there's hunting and there's bow hunting, you know, is the way she explained it to me. But, and that's kind of exactly what you're talking about as far as the negative stigma that I think gets put on some of this stuff. But, you know, again, it's, you know, like I said, I hate the fact that we can't just, hey, this is my take on it. I'm by no means bashing someone's choice of weaponry on how they want to hunt. Everybody hunts for them the way they want to hunt. But no different than if somebody said, hey, I hiked a mile today, and then the next guy stepped up and said, I climbed Everest today.
Right.
The dude that climbed Everest obviously earns my respect. Congrats to the guy that hiked a mile.
Right.
The dude that climbed Everest gets my respect.
Right.
So and that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, that was the reason why I switched to bow hunting. There was a time that I decided, you know what? I'm probably not going to kill as many deer or have opportunities to kill as many deer, but I'm okay with that because there's a certain style of hunting that I want to pursue now when I decided to pick up a bow. And I also go into each season knowing that, yes, this is tough. It's not as tough as longbow and recurve hunting, but it is tough, and there's a chance that I might not harvest a deer this year.
Right.
And I'm okay to accept that. I'm 39 years old. I'm at the point in my life where nobody can make fun of me, and it's actually going to bother me. You know, oh, you must be a bad hunter. You didn't kill a deer this year. You know, no, right. I passed a ton in 3 and 4 year olds, and next year, I have given myself an opportunity to harvest, 5 and 6 year olds.
Right.
The problem being is when you have a group of shotgun drivers that come through and they shoot every antlered deer that they see. Mm-hmm. Well, that 80-inch deer is never going to be a 120. That 120 is never going to be a 140. So that's kind of my question would be to a lot of those guys that hunt in that strategy. If it's brown, it's down. It's like, look, you can actually eliminate the population. Mm-hmm. and then have nothing to hunt next year. But then here's the other caveat to that. The people that hunt, in my opinion, the people that hunt in that strategy, they don't care.
Yeah.
If it's brown, it's down.
Yeah.
And
I was just going to say, it's interesting that you just mentioned about the deer numbers because you mentioned it earlier too. And I literally just read an article where they were talking about how the deer numbers are beginning to decrease in certain areas, right? Like what the article was really all about, it's been a trend that's been happening for a while in specific areas. And I don't remember exactly what area this article was coming from. I want to feel like it was maybe Illinois or Wisconsin. It might have been Indiana, somewhere in the Midwest, of course. But they were talking about how the deer numbers have been dropping lower and lower every year for the past couple of years, and that, hunters, of course, they're blaming their state agencies for not, for mismanaging natural resources, and they're blaming it on predation, and they're blaming it on CWD in certain areas and stuff like that. When this article was really talking about exactly what we're talking about right now, where it's like, look, man, at some point, hunters have to look in the mirror and say, hey, we're kind of part of the problem here. We know that we have these other...
A lot of it is. I mean, in our area, we had some EHD issues back in 2012. And, man, some of those EHD survivors were absolute freaks. Mm-hmm. They were awesome deer. But, in general, a lot of the deer that we're chasing are just now deer that were born in 14. So a lot of these deer are 3 and 4 year, or I'm sorry, in 13. So a lot of these deer are 3 and 4 year olds. The bulk of them that survived. Now, obviously, you have 1s and 2s as well, but the numbers are down in this area, and a lot of the talks that I have with some of the locals, they say, man, back in the glory days, you should have seen all the big deer we have. And they also comment on the number of hunters has increased tremendously in this area as well. So, yeah, man, it's frustrating. Is there? I'm not gonna lie. Is there a small percentage of me that's like, dang, that's a deer that I was chasing? Okay, I'll throw that out there. If anybody's listening, is like, oh, well, I wonder if, heck yeah. I mean, that's why we do it. That's why you hunt. That's why anybody listening hunts. Is sure, we're happy when our buddies harvest a deer, but how does it compare if we kill the deer?
Right.
Whenever you put in the work and you put in the strategy and you did the food plots, and I mean, you look at some of these groups and it's like, have you guys ever harvested a deer with a bow ever? No. But come shotgun season, they kill a half dozen a day.
Right. And I mean, this is the thing, like my buddy that took Lucky, like, and I said, like, he's taught me a lot about bow hunting and really took me under his wing. He's a little older than I am. He's not quite old enough to maybe be my dad, but, old enough to be like a way older brother, like, or a younger uncle type of thing, Awesome dude, awesome hunter, primarily a bow hunter. He kind of got out of bow hunting for a while until I kind of lit his fire to get back into it, and now he's traveling to Ohio by himself this year, going on hunts and stuff like that. He's got the juices going again, and he called me after he took him, and he said, and this is how you have a good hunting buddy. He says, Clint, I shot a big 8-point tonight. I said, did you really? And I'm all excited, and he's like, and it's Lucky. And I told him congratulations right away, because that's awesome. It's like a great deer. And he just told me, he's like, Clint, it's a little bittersweet. He's like, I didn't want to take this animal this way. He was like, I was trying to put some meat in the freezer and didn't realize what I pulled the trigger on until I walked up to him, and you could hear it, that he was, I mean, he's proud as all get out to have that deer. Don't get me wrong. You know what I mean? And I can't wait to lay my hands on those antlers just to check them out. You know what I mean? But, there was a part of him as the bow hunter going, man, this deer would have been awesome to take with a bow. You know what I mean? Sure. And he, and said to me, he's like, you knew this deer. He's like, he killed him on basically in the hollow that I've been hunting him in, and where I had seen him the past couple of times. And so we had a nice conversation about it, where we, confirming like where we thought he was bedding and stuff like that, and just a lot of puzzle pieces kind of came together like after he killed him and stuff like that. But there was definitely a part of him where he was like, man, this animal should have been taken with a bow. You know what I mean? Yeah. And not that everyone's going to necessarily feel that way, but what's that?
Yeah. Well, it's that respect thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he has tremendous respect for the animal too. I mean, because he was just, we didn't talk so much about the hunt, and this was the cool part about it. We didn't talk so much about the hunt and how it transpired and how it came together. He was just kind of, waxing poetically about like how cool of an animal that was. You know what I mean? Like just the size of him, he was just kind of describing like his, his shoulders and his brisket and just how thick he was, and just like a fully mature, because this is the thing, like in Pennsylvania, you don't get that often in that area. You know what I mean? Like I've hunted this property for 6 years, a combination of gun a few times and mainly bow hunting it. And that was the first 4-year-old that I've ever seen on that property. You know what I mean? So, he was just kind of marveling at the animal. It's like, look, same thing like we said before. It's like, I don't want to begrudge anyone the opportunity to go out and enjoy the outdoors and stuff like that. But there is, like you said, there's a part of me that's just like, that was a deer that I spent a lot of time going after. And, is there a part of me that's like, damn, I wish I would have killed that deer? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course there is. It doesn't mean that there's nothing that says that I can't feel both ways about it. There's nothing that says I can't be extremely happy for my buddy and then also slightly disappointed for myself. You know what I mean? It's like I'm allowed to have that. But I don't think they're going to change the gun laws anytime soon. Here in Pennsylvania, right. probably not in Iowa either. So I don't know, man. Like so we did our venting, right? And I know we're running up here. We've been chatting for about 30 minutes. And I definitely want to get to Rick, but what do you think some solutions are, man? Do you have any ideas as to how how to manage this or how to change it going forward, or what are some things that can be done? Like I don't know. Just do you have any thoughts on that?
Maybe move. Like seriously, I mean, like I was told when I moved to my area that the shotgun hunters used to be a lot worse. I mean, they came through here and they killed everything that was moving, and we never had good deer. And I've heard that the groups have gotten smaller, and a couple of them have fallen off as they've gotten older and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's my choice to bow hunt. I want it to be the hardest way possible for me, and I guess technically the hardest way would be like longbow. But I like the idea of bow hunting, and that's the method that I've chosen. That is a good challenge for me, and I like it and I enjoy it. The other part of it is, I'm concerned about the number of deer to chase. Mm-hmm. I mean, if these guys went out in these groups and all they did was kill 5 and 6 year old deer, mm-hmm. Holy crap, like, congrats guys, you guys are slaying some giants. That's cool.
Yeah.
But when you talk to some of them and they're like, hey, we only shoot mature deer in our group and we make sure that we kill enough does and kind of balance things out. And then you get the deer numbers. Hey, how's the season been so far? Well, we've killed about 5 bucks so far, no does. Mm-hmm. One of them was a good buck. The rest of them, man, we thought they were a lot bigger. And, right. They were just a couple of 2 and 3 year olds. I'm like, great. I mean, they're not just hurting me. I mean, they're hurting themselves as well. And they're hurting the herd. And I mean, QDM, mm-hmm. I'm not a crazy person for wanting to see mature deer harvested and not young deer. I'm not the person that invented QDM. It's a thing,
Right.
It's something that everybody is trying to promote to improve the quality of deer that everybody has access to. I don't own the deer. The state technically kind of, basically owns the deer. And, if anybody listening decides, hey, I hate John because he doesn't like shotgun hunters. It's not the shotgun hunters that I dislike. I dislike some of the tactics that I see. Yeah. And I dislike the safety, side of it, or the lack of safety. And maybe that's just me being a retired cop. I'm thinking, man, you guys are going to end up getting shot, you know what I mean? Right. In a crossfire situation. But,
well, I think you said a couple things that were interesting there, man. And it just to kind of close the loop, I guess, on my end here is, as I'm listening to you talk, like this is my takeaway, because I think you said some things that were really good there. I think more importantly is just like know the scenario, right? Because I think if that was just if folks just understood. So if I'll use our property for example, back home, where like you said, taking all bucks, right? Now on that property they took the higher percentage bucks on that property. I will say that. I mean, there was that one lucky that was a hammer for that area. And then there were a few what I called up and comers that were 8 and 9 points. It looked like they were probably 2, maybe a 3-year-old here and there, but just needed another year, and they would be a really really good quality animal. You know what I mean? But they didn't take a single doe off the property, and mm-hmm. don't think they took a single doe off the property last year either. And that area is the area in Pennsylvania that is in the sweet spot of the CWD zone. Which I mentioned in the past, which is why I can't put mineral out there. I can't, use any type of, mock scrapes or anything like that in that area. So it's like if you combine all those factors and go, we're in the hot zone for CWD, which means it's a possibility that we're going to see some issues. Maybe. I can't say for certainty, right? I'm not a biologist, but like it's trending in the wrong direction. I think we can all agree on that. And sure. Then we're going to go harvest the top end of all the bucks that we see, right? Without kind of making a judgment as to like, man, we've got a CWD area that we're in here. Maybe we should kind of let a couple of these up and comers kind of scrape by this year and make sure that we have a decent herd. And maybe we should do some doe management to reduce some of the numbers. So maybe we can control the spread of CWD a little bit, so we're getting less and less concentrated deer in concentrated areas, right? Like, if that was the thought process, then by all means, like, kill whatever you want. You know what I mean? Or kill whatever's pertinent or whatever's, appropriate. But to kind of go in and just kind of, no pun intended, but guns a-blazing and just kind of start mowing down whatever it is that's going to come by you because you want to put a deer down. You know what I mean? It's like, and then not taking into consideration what the possible ramifications are more broadly. Like, that's the part to me where it's like, man, you got to think these things through, especially if you own the property and you're trying to manage it. Like, you're working against yourself there. And I think that's the part that I'm kind of like, I don't get it. Don't understand it. But, but hey, man, I think, at this point, I think we've both kind of made our point. Again, we'll add the disclaimer. John and I are not anti-gun hunting. We're just, let's all be on the same team and think about it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. I mean, it's at the end of the day, a little more conservation side, a little more looking at next season and the season after that. Kind of keep next season in mind before you pull the trigger on any weapon. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Think about what it might be doing to the herd, and everybody's got their own way of convincing themselves that what they did was the correct thing. But I don't know. Maybe people go a couple of seasons and they're like, man, the only thing I saw was a bunch of spikes and 2-year-olds. Mm-hmm. Man, maybe we ought to lay off killing as much as we're doing. So, yeah. No, I mean, like in Iowa this year, they also, I'll throw this out there, they opened up a smoothbore rifle round. Mm-hmm. Just one round in particular. It's kind of an oddball round. So there's been a few guys going out there and picking up those guns and hunting with that. And, it's got me worried to death. Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, where does it end? Mm-hmm. Next year or the year after that, is it going to be, okay, now we've opened it up to 270s and 30-06s? Right. If we do that in Iowa and there's any kind of a season at all, I mean, Southeast Iowa becomes the next Pike County, Illinois. Yeah, I mean, that's what we got here, man. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the, 270s, 30-06s, 7MMs. You know what I mean? That's the... I think, 243s. And I'm not a herd biologist. I'm not a deer management by trade or by school or training. But, if they eliminated the rifle season in PA, mm-hmm. I mean, the very next year after mm-hmm. they did that, bar none, yes, there's going to be a lot of grumblings and people are going to be upset about it. But could you imagine the increase of quality, big, mature deer, dude, that people see? It's funny because the thing is that people have this idea that you can't grow good deer in Pennsylvania, and that's just not true. You know what I mean? Like, you can grow good. You're not going to grow Iowa deer in Pennsylvania, right? It's just there's a food density issue that the soil in Iowa produces more food per square mile or per square acre rather. Whether it's in the timber or whether it's in a field, it doesn't matter where it's at. It grows more than its counterpart in Pennsylvania. Like, that's just a biological fact. That's Neil Daughtry, who's done tons of wildlife and biology management with his habitat outfit. That's straight from him. Yep. The thing is literally what you're saying is which we experienced on the farm this year. That's why there was a nice crop of young up and coming deer, because last year no one saw anything. Like, Lucky was the only good deer that anyone saw the entire year, and the rest of them were what I call peckerheads. They were like fork horns and spikes running around with like one nice rack basket 8-point that ran around, and that was it. And none of them got killed last year. And I mean, it's not a coincidence. And then all of a sudden this year it's like, oh man, you've got like six nice up and coming deer that are 2.5-year-olds that are all sporting some bone. You know what I mean? It's like, so I guess people just need to be observant as to like why, connect the why. Like, if you're seeing X, like where and why did that happen, or why did that happen, and how did it happen? Well, it happened because they lived. They were around last year. You just didn't notice them because they weren't worth your time to look at. You know what I mean? It's like, and now all of a sudden they've got another year age on them, and bam, there you go. You've got a nice crop of deer on your property. If you mow them down this year, chances are you may not replenish again.
You know what I mean? So you're 100% right, man. It's like, doing away with gun season in PA for one season would never happen. But the sentiment is that if everyone just collectively, decided, that, and not everyone's going to hunt for the same reasons, and I get that. But if you're a person who enjoys hunting good deer or would like to hunt good deer, that should be your motivation. Because if you can do that and change some other people's minds, you know what I mean, then it can be better. Because the farm that I hunt, it's like before, it's like there were guys down there who hunted deer all their life, who killed plenty of deer, were still shooting, year and a half old 6 points and stuff like that. And I said something about it. I was like really? I was like, you gotta, like, are you gonna mount that? Because I was like, if you're not, I was like, I'm not sure why you shot it. I was like, because
sure.
You've killed plenty of those. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that I've been in your garage. I've seen these hanging on your wall or in your garage. And so now at least they're setting like an 8-point minimum, like nothing less than an 8-point, which is a step in the right direction.
That's made a huge difference already.
Yeah, I mean, we have the antler restrictions here, and like in some parts of PA, it's 3 on one side. In other parts of PA, I think it's 4 on one side. It depends on what part of the state you're in. If I'm not mistaken, I can't remember precisely what it is. But even on our property at home, it's not even like we finally got to the point, that everyone who hunts there has agreed that it's not just 4 on one side legal buck or 3 on one side, I think, in that area, that it's like, it's a rack 8. It's got to be an 8-point or it doesn't get taken.
Well, here's something to throw out, Clint. Like, here's an idea. Maybe you ought to do a poll. Would you rather kill a 140 every single year, or would you rather kill a 170 every other year?
Right.
And I think that kind of the way people answer that question, I think sheds a lot of light on the audience. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because some of these folks, that maybe, and if they're happy killing a forkhorn, then far be it for me to tell them that they shouldn't. It just, to me, it's like you could do a little better, I think is what I'm saying. Like we could raise the bar collectively, or raise the standard collectively. But it's the same person that'll say, "Well, I'm just hunting for meat." You know what I mean? And that's fine. But at that same time, if you put that person in a stand and you put a forkhorn next to 130-inch or 140-inch 10-point, which one are they shooting? Because if they're hunting for meat, they should shoot the one on the left because it doesn't matter, or they should shoot the forkhorn because it doesn't matter. But 10 times out of 10, they'll shoot the 140-inch 10-point. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yep.
And I was talking to Ryan, and I know you're buddies with Ryan Fuhr from QDMA. We were talking about that when he was saying the kind of the meat hunting approach. It's like if that holds true, then that should be true no matter what antler size is in front of you. But it just doesn't hold water. And then I think the quote he gave was, "I like to drive fast cars, chase pretty girls, and shoot big bucks."
Yep.
And somewhere I thought there was a T-shirt in that somewhere.
Yeah. There probably is. Somebody needs to jump on that.
Yeah, that's what I was.
That's trademark. That's going to be trademarked soon.
Yeah, exactly. So I think John and I just created a T-shirt business with that T-shirt alone. All right, man. So I think with that, dude, let's go ahead and get Rick. And we were talking long-term, short-term goals. Jeez, man, I'm having a hard time talking today. But with Rick, his were all short-term this year because that fool got into a mess of deer early in the year, and he's going to tell us all about his October magic.
Yep. This cat cracks me up, man. Like I said it once before, I could sit and listen to these guys from up in that area talk. Like, I love their accent. Forget about it. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's funny to me.
Yeah. Without further ado, man, let's go ahead and get a little of that New York pizzeria Pie Town love from Rick Kiely.
There you go.
Before we get Rick on the line, I want to take a quick break to talk about our partners at Exodus Outdoor Gear. Of course, we have the holidays coming up, and you should absolutely head over to the ExodusOutdoorGear.com website and pick up an Exodus trail camera either for yourself or possibly for that hunter in your life. If you use the promo code TRUTH at checkout, you will receive a $20 discount on said Exodus trail camera. With that said, we're also doing an Exodus trail camera giveaway for the Lift 2, which is the newest camera that had come out. All you have to do to get entered into this contest or into this drawing is head over to thetruthfromthestand.com about page. and submit your information to the email newsletter sign up. If you do that one thing, you will be entered into a drawing. Once we hit 200 folks who have entered, then we will do a random drawing and get the goods out to you. And for more information on the Exodus lift cameras, head over to ExodusOutdoorGear.com. And now back to the show. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today's guest, we are joined by a buddy of ours. He is a second-time guest here. He was on, I want to say nearly a year ago we had him on. We're talking to Rick Kiely from the great state of New York. Now, the reason Rick is coming back on is, one, because he's a hell of a guy and we like him. But number two, he had what I like to call a magical October this year. Plenty of folks, go into the deer woods, and the beginning of October is really kind of the time people get excited. Of course, deer hunting is just kind of opening, and then you hit that kind of period of the season where people refer to as the lull, and it's the lull, and it's debatable whether that's a factual thing or if it's something that's make believe, or is it just because deer are shifting territories, and then people really kind of pick it back up as things get closer to into pre-rut, and then of course the end of October is whenever we really like to kind of hit the timber and people get excited. But the thing is that Rick actually had a fantastic October, and all of October has been great for him. And I've been following him on social media, and if you're not, you should follow the Double Lunger on Instagram, because this dude has seen more bucks this season than I may have ever seen in any 3 seasons combined. But Ricky, how are you doing, brother?
All right, my man. How are you, Clint?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm hanging in there. I mean, I'd like to say I'm doing pretty good, but I don't know if I'm doing as good as you are, man. You've had quite the season so far.
Well, I'll tell you, I had I guess the bow hunters out there can call it the dream season. It is all the cards happen to fall in my place, totally unexpected. Hopefully to be expected, but unexpected. And it's just totally amazing. This is pretty much what it's all about.
Right. I mean, but I definitely want to jump into and talk about the hunts that you had, specifically the deer that you were able to take this year. But man, you are just like, every time you're doing a sit, I follow your Instagram feed, pretty closely or whatever, you and I talk quite a bit.
Yep.
And it's just like every time you're in the timber, I'm seeing you post videos of bucks. So it's not like you're seeing them from a distance. Like you're seeing them close enough that you're literally getting video of these deer. And I'm assuming like some of that you're shooting on your phone.
Yes, actually, all on my phone. I don't have any professional videographer, recorders or anything.
Right.
But it's pretty much open in the morning. I shot that one buck 30 minutes into it. 2 weeks later, I shot the other buck. And the hunting group that I hang out with here at home, and my 2 hunting partners that I hunt with, they're like, yeah, now everywhere you go, you're going to see bucks.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much the way it's unfolding. Every stand that I haven't hunted yet that I had saved, and every tree I had picked out for the winds, for the rut, after the pre-rut and after the beginning of October, all new areas are all panning out to be, if I didn't fill my tags, it would be unbelievable. I'm like, I'd fill my tag now, or I could fill my tag now. Every tree and every spot, it's working.
Right.
My friends don't have their tags filled, and I'm like, well, why don't you go to this tree that I didn't sit yet, and I'll bring you to this spot. No, I'm going to stick to what I'm doing. And 20 minutes later, the sun's coming up. I'm sending them a video. They're like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "I told you." So it's just pretty cool the way the karma's kind of working out, and it's just pretty neat.
Right.
Like I said, it's a dream season, and it's pretty neat the way it's going.
Nice. I mean, I know, for those out there listening, like this stuff isn't happening by chance. I mean, Ricky puts in a ton of time, a ton of boots on the ground, does a lot of scouting. I mean, when you're not working or spending time with your family, you're pretty much living in the woods. So, I mean, it's working because the work was put in. But, I mean, did you do anything differently this off season, as far as like your scouting, or were there different types of terrain or different types of land you were starting to look at that was just different than what you had hunted in the past that you think is the reason for why you're seeing so much more activity? Or have you been able to kind of put like anything together for why, it's playing out the way it has?
Well, if I can remember correctly, when I was on your show the last time, at the end of the podcast, you asked me what would I do differently,
mm-hmm.
and to change up what's going on. And what I did different, and what I wanted to do different, is you hunt your areas like 5 or 6 or 7 years straight, and you start getting like you're not seeing the bucks you want to see. Or the year before that, I didn't see one book deer.
Right.
I shot like a 120-inch 8-pointer, and a big medium on Thanksgiving weekend and a bunch of does, but I'm like, I got to change something up here. So what I wanted to do, and really, I took a week off of vacation, which, it's on my Instagram. I put down a shedcation.
Right.
And I took a week off in March, and I walked every single day.
Nice.
What I didn't want to do is get far away from what I knew, but just get to the outer skirts of it and just change it up a little bit. Find nice sheds, find different trees, little different areas just a little further away. And I found a couple, like Greg was showing me with the GPS, Greg Litzinger.
Right, yeah.
I got a couple really, really big pieces that, I need to get to these trees with a GPS. I'll never find them.
Right.
And they're working out too. It's unreal. It's really cool.
Yeah, it sounds like you're just going to some uncharted territory that might be kind of somewhat untapped too. You know what I mean? Especially if you're putting in some distance and getting into some areas that are kind of, I don't want to say, that are, let's say maybe they're more vast, right? Like there's some areas that just, there's more ground to cover. So there's the likelihood of someone having been there in the past or in the recent past is probably the likelihood's probably not quite as high. So you're getting into some virgin territory, it sounds like.
Correct. And how nice is it being a bow hunter with the sun coming up and the whole woods waking up and you're in a spot you've never been in before?
Oh man,
you have no idea what's going to happen or where it's going to come from. And it's just amazing. That is what I really, really love. Right, and now that I'm tagged out, I can say, yeah, who cares? I don't have to think about it or try to mastermind the wind. If the wind's not perfect, I'm just going to go and sit and and get a sunrise. Right. Here he comes.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, because you're talking about you're moving into some of the outer skirts of the places that you're hunting and stuff like that. And I definitely want to get into the deer that you killed specifically, but I want to kind of set the stage a little bit. So when you're talking about these different areas now, like give me a sense of like, are we talking, is this big woods? Is this small parcel? Is this public land? Is this hilly terrain? What type of setting are you kind of getting into in these sets?
I am getting into, like in the beginning of the season with the buck that I killed opening morning, that is small parcel, half public, half private, with major bedding and 2 runs that go into it from feeding to bedding, from where they're feeding at night, from where they're coming in to bed up. And I found these 2 runs, and it's where I hunted before, but I just changed it up. Instead of going deeper into it, I stayed on the edges more and hunted the wind perfect 100%.
Right. So is this swampy? Is this hardwoods? Like what kind of terrain are we talking about, or habitat?
Hardwoods and bull briars.
Okay. Nice. So it's good. I'm sure there's some trees dropping acorns in the area, and with all the briars and brush, it sounds like you'd mentioned, it's probably some nasty bedding with some decent food for October.
Oh, without a doubt. There's a lot of white oaks, but the white oaks weren't that good here this year.
Really? That's interesting.
And actually, the white oaks, they dropped early. They were, I'm going to say, probably by the first week into the season, they were done already. They were all eaten up.
Really? Wow, that's interesting, because a lot of folks I talked to, I know around PA, even Ohio, and I know that we did the DIY report. There was a lot of folks who had plenty of acorns, even headed in through toward the end of October, with a lot of folks I talked to. So that's interesting, because I know in PA we had a great year for mast. It was good.
Last year, the acorn crop here was unbelievable. I mean, incredible.
Interesting. So
the white oak. Yeah.
So I want to jump into this first buck that you killed. So let's start there. First off, I want to ask, so this, like you'd mentioned earlier, this happened in the first 30 minutes of the set, right? And so, So correct me if I'm wrong, but this was a morning set, right?
This was actually open in the morning, October 1st in New York.
All right. So what's interesting there is, like, I know, a lot of folks, it'll be, I don't want to say, common knowledge isn't the right word to use, but it's very much a tried and true method, or something that bow hunters follow, that a lot of times they're not hunting mornings early October, and they won't hunt mornings until they hit, maybe the 3rd week of October. Unless they have something that's on a pattern that they know that they can get in that bed to food wheelhouse and make something happen. So what was it for you that told you to get into a stand the first morning? Was there something that you kind of had a feeling, or did you have some type of intel that you just felt like that spot was a place you should be in the morning, or what was the deal with that?
So this is how the whole era of me going where I was open in the morning. I believe the date on the camera stamp was August 23rd. Now, I just mentioned to you before, with this thicket that I was hunting on the edge of it, has 2 primary runs that come through hardwoods, if you could picture it, from a big food source through hardwoods, one coming from the north and one coming from the west, and they intersected perfect before they stage. Like, I could picture the deer staging up and going into the food source. When I like to use my cameras and place my cameras, I don't like to go deep into the sacred area where the deer are going to be bedding all day long. Like, even to put a camera up, I don't want to run in there and bump deer out of there just to get a picture. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want to put the camera on the runs like I'm going to hunt them. Like you said, don't go near the, for the afternoon, they're bedding in there. So I had my camera on one of these runs, probably, and I use these runs as a timestamp. The runs that I find from shed hunting that go from bedding to transition area to staging area to feeding. I'll say, okay, if a deer is going to get out of its bed and get on this run and work its way in the evening, right when it's getting dark, and work it all the way to bedding and to feeding, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, the deer's still going to be on this run working or coming back from the food source, away from the bed. So I put my camera on this run, facing down the run, where I can get like a picture of a deer maybe 50 yards down the run. Anything just to give me a clue on what's going on.
Right.
So, make a long story short, I put my camera on this run. I think I left it for 2 weeks. My friend Adam and I came back in the afternoon. I ran in, I grabbed the camera, I got it out of there. I looked at the pictures, and I went through all the pictures, and there was does and little bucks on these runs going back and forth just like I thought. And I'm like, all right, this is definitely what they're doing like I thought, 100%. And then on one picture, like 60, 70 yards up the run to where the tree is that I picked out, I got one picture of a deer walking away, heading into that bedding area with a huge left side on it. I couldn't see the right side because the way the trees were blocking it, but I almost erased it. I almost missed it. I'm like, oh my gosh. I said, look at this. I went, oh my gosh. So I look at him and I say, that tree's got to get cleaned. Like, it instantly clicked.
Right.
And he goes, what do you mean? I'm like, we're going to go home, and next weekend, that's it. I'm not coming out here till 1 o'clock in the morning, and I got to clean this tree up. And he says, you're nuts. I said, nah, you can come if you want, but I'm coming to do it. That's it.
Right.
So that's what I did. I waited till the next weekend, and I knew if the winds were going to be northeast or northwest, I'm definitely going to get in that tree for open in the morning, but I want to make sure I have it ready. And I went in there at 1 o'clock in the morning and did all the work I had to do, the limited amount of work that I had to do, and I didn't get back in there till opening in the morning again. And it totally worked out. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting in my stand open in the morning. It's an hour before getting dark. I'm looking at the stars. I'm like, all right, here we go. It's open in the morning again. I wonder if this is going to pan out. I'm probably never going to see this deer I got the picture of, because that's usually how it works. You know?
Right. So let me ask you this: like, going in and cleaning up a tree, or getting, doing some tree stand prep, if you will.
Yep.
Going in at 1 a.m., is that something that you typically do, or is that something?
No, I've never done that.
No.
But I knew if this deer and other bucks that are with him in a bachelor group maybe are using this, and I was even, I got in there, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to come in there in the morning, the sun's going to come up, they're going to smell where I was. I mean, I put my boots on, I sprayed as much as I had to spray. I've never done that, ever. Have I ever done that?
Wow. Okay, so did you hang the tree that day, or did you just clean the tree up?
No, it was a tree I climbed.
Okay, so you climbed. All right, so give me, so we've gotten to the point now where you got a picture of this guy, right? Even though it was from a distance, you saw enough to get you excited and know that you needed to try to get something done. You get in there, you get the tree cleaned up, so you have a smooth ascent that first morning. So tell me, what time are you hitting the timber? When you get in that first morning, what's your usual kind of setup walking in?
Boy, I'm going to say I got to my tree and got my lone wolf around the tree. Oof. Usually on open in the morning, I'm an early bird. I like to sit there for an hour or so.
Right.
So I'm going to guess like 4:45 maybe.
4:45, okay. And then you saw him, and you of course made the shot about 30 minutes after first light, roughly. Is that correct?
I'm going to say within the hour.
Within the
Definitely
hour.
Within.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're sitting in your tree, the sun's coming up. I know, just like, bow hunters, just, like John and I, and you even mentioned, it's like one of the things, it's one of my favorite things to do is, especially that first morning, because it's just kind of like, it's back, right? As I just like to watch the sun come up, watch the leaves kind of turn colors, and the forest come alive and stuff. So you're kind of watching all this happen, right? So tell me about when you see him approaching, how he was approaching, and kind of walk me through like the whole scenario from the time that you spotted him to the time that you were able to take the shot. Like I want to hear how all that went down.
I love reliving this.
Yeah. Who wouldn't?
Yeah. I mean, so I'm sitting there, the woods is, like you said, coming alive, and nothing's really happening for like the first 20 minutes. I'm like, all right, so I'm in this set. I've had this all planned since August. The wind is perfect, just how I want it, north, northwest, and northeast. And finally, I look over my left shoulder, and I see, movement. You first catch a glimpse of a movement. So it's a doe and a fawn, and they're coming perfect, right on the run that comes from the west. And Clint, they came right in. As they're coming, it's going to be a 20-yard shot. And I'm saying, boy, should I shoot this big doe or no?
Right.
I'm like, it's here again. Should we do this and just, shoot a big doe? So she as she's coming, they're almost to my stand, like for a 20-yard shot, right the way I'm set up for, perfect. I just happened to look over again to where they came from, and I saw them.
And now, are they coming from behind you?
No, they're coming from my left flank. They're coming perfectly in front of me.
Okay.
So the run that they're on is going to be a 15-yard shot coming past me into the bedding. It's perfect.
Nice.
Picture perfect. So I look back over my left shoulder after, I watched them for a couple minutes working their way to me, and I just see this freaking rack floating. That's all, Clint. That's all I looked over. I'm like, holy crap, are you kidding me? I couldn't even believe it. My heart was for like a minute, ripping. I'm like, all right, relax. We've done this a million times here.
Right.
But it looked like a 200-inch freaking deer to me. It looked giant.
Right.
So, and it's coming through like, it's like a nice high canopy, like I would say chest high, to a point that I'm sitting on the edge of it. It's I'd say like Russian olives.
Okay.
So he's coming. Now what he's doing, and what I realized what he did after the whole hunt kind of transpired, and I killed him, I shot him, I'm getting ready, and I bow hunt with a hinge.
Mm-hmm.
So I get my hinge out of my pocket, and I cock my hinge under the ledge, and I put it on my loop, and I add pressure. Now I'm set. Now I get set on my stand to shoot him where the does are right in front of me on that run that I'm set up for.
Mm-hmm. And
I look, and I don't see him anymore. I'm like, oh my gosh, where the heck did he go? So I look, he's going behind me. I'm like, oh no, that's the way my wind's going.
Right.
So now I'm watching him, and the does are right there in front of me. Now the does are both watching him. So I'm watching him, and as he's walking, I'm like, I have to turn around and shoot him on the other side of my tree.
Oh man.
So now I have to turn totally around with these does 15 yards in front of me. So I turn around as quiet as I can with my eyes shut, and I'm like, any minute I'm going to hear him blow at me. I can't even believe it's going to happen to me.
Right.
I'm going to mess this whole thing up. So I turn to the other side of the tree, and it's 22 yards. I ranged it real quick to a log that he was walking right in line with. So as he's walking, I'm like, all right, here we go. This is going to happen. Clint, listen to this. I come to full draw with my hinge. I anchor just as he's coming past, so I have a shot past the tree I'm sitting in because now I'm facing the tree. I go to stop him. I stop him, and he stops too short. Dude, I'm at full draw, and my pin's on his jaw. I'm like, oh, my gosh, are you kidding me? And now, I don't know if you ever shot with a hinge, but if you make any kind of little move, it's going to go off. That's it.
Right.
So I'm holding, and I'm holding, and I'm holding. I'm like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe he's not going to move. I had to let down.
Oh, man.
I let down. I relaxed. I took my hinge off the loop. I put my hinge back on the loop. He took a step. I stopped him again. I came to full draw. I anchored. I got my pin right down where I wanted it, and I just started relaxing and just holding and waiting. And boy, I'll tell you, that string dump and that arrow freaking went through him perfect.
Oh man, how long now? So after you were drawn back there and you were waiting for your, because that's the cool thing about shooting, a hinge or whatever, what have you, is that surprise release, right? I mean, that's what you're looking for, is that surprise release. How long did it feel like you were waiting until you got that surprise release?
Boy, I tell you, when you're a bow hunter at full draw, I guess you can call it in the notions as per se. Everything just kind of like slows down, especially with a deer that caliber.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, oh my gosh, this isn't going off.
Right.
Everything just felt, perfect.
Right.
Perfect.
So all right. So you laced him with an arrow. You saw it make good contact. Now, did you see him drop, or did whenever he took off, like what happened then?
When I hit him, my fletching was just sticking out of where it went in. It hit his off. It hit his off knuckle going out, and all I saw him was tuck his head down and like bulldoze right through the thicket into the bedding area. So now here I am with my hand behind my head, after shooting, and I'm I don't see him, but I'm listening, and I actually heard him fall over like 4 seconds later. I heard it.
Nice.
It was perfect.
All right.
And I'm standing in my stand with my release in my hand, going, "All right, now what do I do with this?" I was like so confused. I'm like, "Oh gosh."
Oh man. So all right. So you get down out of your tree, right? And you're walking up. Give me the walk up. Like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking when you first see him?
I get down out of my tree as quick as I can, and I get over to where I shot him. Couldn't find blood, and I'm like I'm like in a run. I want to run, and I want to get my hands on this thing.
Right.
And I said, you know what? I ain't looking for blood. I'm going right to where I heard him fall. And he only went like 30, 40 yards.
Right.
And I'll tell you, it's not my biggest buck, but it's probably like 3 inches off of it.
Nice.
And it's as bow hunters and all the bow hunters out there listening, the magic of taking a beautiful deer, whether it's a doe, a spike, a small basket 8, or a big mature 170-inch buck, it's just amazing. It's something that I almost feel sorry for people that don't do it, that can get this feeling, and it's something you can't describe. I just got on my hands and knees with this thing, and it was a moment that you can't take away in my life that I'll ever give to anybody. It's unreal. Yeah. It's awesome.
I hear that.
Yeah.
That's a
very, 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 very humbled and very appreciative to be in that moment and that to be given to me. You know.
That was well said, man. That was a nice way to tie that one up. But so when you got him home, man, did you happen to score him? What did he end up scoring?
Well, I rough scored him at 163.
163. Man,
that's me roughing it. A couple of my friends say he's definitely over 165, 167. He's gonna be back here in 2 weeks from a taxidermist, and we're really gonna put instead of a piece of parachute cord, we're gonna put my friend has a wire that he scores all the deer with.
Right.
And I'll shoot you a text, or I'll put it on a post on Instagram.
Yeah.
What he really scored. Yeah.
For sure, man. That's because dude, anywhere that's a great deer, and the fact that it's you're hunting in New York, of course, where it's not known for big deer.
Yep.
That's an exceptional deer for that area. I'd definitely be happy with that. And John and I talk about, what you just kind of mentioned, which was just the hunting for yourself, approach of no matter of what it is, if it's a doe, if it's a basket 8, 163-inch deer, whatever it is, it's that feeling that you get, does the size of the animal doesn't give you that feeling. It's just the experience, it's that you get to have. And that's awesome the way you stated it. John, what are you thinking, man? New York. We might have to get some New York tags here in the next year or so.
I'm telling you, there's a bunch of those states in the New England area that'll really kind of surprise you. The Marylands and New York. I've seen some great deer come out of New York, and hearing his story, I'm like, man, I'm gonna go and eat pizza and you know what I mean? Yeah. Be a New Yorker. Come on, Yeah. Forget about it.
I got the best pizza you'll ever have, pal. You'll see.
Yeah. That's cool. No, you were talking about the hinge release, and as you were telling your story, I'm like, I know the way the story ends, but I'm like, man, he had to let down. I've done hinge and back tension. I tried it one time. I gave myself a bloody lip, and that was it.
Been there, done that. That's how you have to learn,
Yeah.
And I'll say letting down really comes to a lot of shooting over the summer, a lot of 3D, and sticking with the hinge. I've probably shot the hinge for 15 years now, so that's it's almost like having another hand. When I draw the bow back, it's almost everything's natural to me. But when you let down, you really got to cock your wrist and let down. In that situation, it's in my mind like, oh my gosh, if this thing goes off, I'm going to mess it all up.
Right.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, the crazy thing is, man, is that story alone and that hunt alone is a great hunt for any hunter anywhere in any state, right?
Yeah.
But then you had to go and just and just up the ante a little bit here. And because in New York where you're at, you get 2 buck tags, right? If I'm not mistaken, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. So there's
2 buck tags for the regular season.
Right. And so I remember it was just like, whatever it was, 2 weeks later, and I'm scrolling through. And I knew you had another buck tag, and I know you do a lot of doe hunting and stuff like that. So I was expecting to see some does come up on your Instagram feed and stuff like that. And then I see yet another picture of you with another great looking buck. This one, the kicker with this one is like, I don't remember the exact date, but what I do remember, because when we were texting originally, is that it happened, I feel like, in the middle of the lull. And that was the part that, like, I really thought was interesting, because a lot of folks,
everybody talks about this, unquote, quote unquote, lull.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so it was like, I wanted to talk to you about this deer because it was like, number one, it's also a great deer, and I wanted to get the full story. But you were able to take it during the middle of the time where people say that they see the least amount of deer movement and least amount of deer action. So I want to start by asking, what time of day was this? Also another morning hunt? Was this an evening hunt? What was the situation with this one? Before we dive in to talk about Rick's second buck of October, let's take a quick break to hear a word about our partners at Whitetail Institute of North America. If any of you out there are anything like me, you've probably already started at least daydreaming and shifting gears to think about plans for next year. And for me, part of that process is what type of food plots am I going to put in? Where am I going to put food plots? I, of course, have one new property that I'm going to be doing some food plotting on. The first step that I really need to take once I kind of figure all that stuff out is to do a soil test. And you can pick those up at Whitetail Institute of North America or whitetailinstitute.com. Testing your soil is probably the most important step for making sure that you have food plot success. And Whitetail Institute's soil test kit will give you exactly, or show you exactly, how much lime and fertilizer you'll need, and make sure that you don't spend any more money and don't buy anything that you don't need to make sure that your food plots are successful. It's going to ensure the most successful food plot possible. It's going to save you money on fertilizer and lime. It's super easy to use. I've used it last year. They send you a readout with everything that you need to know, and then you also get a professional consultation via a 1-800 number if you need to ask any additional questions. So in order to get set up and prepared to get your food plots in on time this year being the key, hopefully mine will get in on time, head over to whitetailinstituteofnorthamerica.com or whitetailinstitute.com and pick up your soil test kit now to prepare for the spring. And now back to the show.
And what's so weird about this season, this was another morning hunt.
Wow.
And I am not a big advocate of shooting a mature or a big deer for the mornings. I'm more of, let's sneak up to the bedding area, let's get in the middle of their transition, and let's get these bucks in the afternoon after they get in the morning and get comfortable. Let's get them coming out. I've shot most of my nice deer in the afternoon.
Right.
So this year was like, from the work that I did and the new spots that I found, and sticking to them was one of my big things. Is it happened for me both times in the morning.
Right. So was this also one of those areas where it was on the fringe of other areas that you've hunted? So this was really a new spot again?
This was a new spot, but I've hunted it before, but have never figured it out. Okay. I've hunted it a couple times. I redid the stand after finding a nice shed and a lot of deer activity. But as you hunt an area, how can I tell you how I looked at this and said, this is definitely what I want to hunt in the middle of October during pre-rut.
Right. So what was it about this that said that you needed to be hunting
there during pre-rut? There was a very, very big population of does there.
Okay.
Like you could walk into this field, there's a cedar field, and this edge of this thicket, and at any time of the day, if no one's walked in there yet, and pop out 6-7 does. And all right around underneath my stand. My stand's only like 15 feet in a tree, tucked in really, really nice in a poplar tree into a nice big Russian olive bush.
Okay.
So what I was thinking was, or the way I put it together, as October runs around and all the bucks start moving around and start smelling and start running after does and see what's going on, not a lot, just checking the does out, this would be a good transition area for bucks that don't live in the area, but from a half a mile or another big plot of woods that would come in there and start checking does out for pre-rut. Mm-hmm. You know how pre-rut is. I think pre-rut's better than a rut.
I'm starting to become a believer. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and it worked. And I'll tell you, I passed the buck first. As crazy as it sounds.
Are you serious?
I'm not. I am serious. My friend Adam goes, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "Dude, I passed him first." And it's crazy. It's crazy how it happened.
So
it is unreal. And then when you're ready to hear it, I'm ready to tell you.
Yeah. So let me ask this.
I don't want to jump ahead of you. You know
Right,
what I
it's
mean?
okay, man. It's okay. We're gonna draw this out nice and slow, like for the people out, for
Yeah.
the people
No,
listening.
I'm good with it.
What so I want to know again here, what kind of property were you hunting here? Was this small parcel? Was this public land? Was this a big parcel? So give me the kind of details of what this property kind of encompasses.
This was public, small parcel that is overlooked tremendously.
Okay.
So from the pressure from the big public, these doe groups and bucks have their own little sanctuary that nobody, I wouldn't say anybody, but somebody like me that has a knack for these small pieces that, you know what, I bet you there's deer living in here when the pressure's on over there.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked incredible.
It's
Incredible.
funny. It's funny you say that because so this year was the first year I hunted a small parcel, and well, actually, I shouldn't say it was the first year. I hunted a small parcel for the first time last year. When I say small parcel, I'm talking like something, 15 acres and under type of thing. You know what I mean? Like something like that. Like I'm, talking like suburban type of hunting, and I did that for the second time here this year. And I saw deer, and it was kind of a similar. That's where I killed my buck this year. It was on that small parcel. It was a small parcel butted up against public land, and you're 100% right. Where it's like all the pressure is pretty much all around this small little piece of property that no one's paying any attention to. And that buck I ended up shooting was actually bedded right behind me, because it's just super thick and super nasty. So I'm starting to become a believer in some of this small parcel hunting, because most hunters. It's the whole mindset of if I didn't walk 3 miles and almost kill myself to get there, then it's not worth hunting. Where I kind of more follow like the Dan Enfault method sometimes to a degree of where it's like I'm looking for the spot that's near the parking lot or right off the road that nobody wants to hunt, but that's where a buck's going to lay because nobody's been there in 20 years.
Yep. Exactly.
So that's interesting. So the next question, man, is the previous guy you had on camera. So what was your setup for this? Did you especially to go in and hunt a morning, like what told you to hunt a morning? Did you have some camera intel or what was the deal there?
No, I had no camera intel. I'm not really big on the cameras, just a little bit. And that's for, like I got lucky this year with the opener. That was no camera info, just my info from shed hunting. I got a lone wolf hang on that's been in there. I had that set since the summer. Mm-hmm. I had my shooting lane set. I had one run behind me I could shoot 15 yards. One run to the left of me that goes through a fence break, and I have a whole big field in front of me I could shoot the cedar field. And pretty much what I wanted to do was let that piece soak for all the other people that are in the big woods adjacent that. Mm-hmm. And when I think, okay, all these people are really running around in these woods on blood trails and killing deer, and maybe guys are hunting the wind wrong, maybe they're walking in the wrong way, they don't know the woods yet. All these deer are going to get out the back door on them and hang up in there where they feel safe. Mm-hmm. So my thing was for the pre-rut, if the doe groups are hanging in there, all these bucks or hopefully some other buck from that hasn't been there or doesn't live there is going to come check these does out. Right. And when I drove to that spot that morning, I saw a whole bunch of people on the public. All the spots were full, and I'm like, that's it. The wind is dead north. I know exactly where I'm going.
Nice.
And it worked. It worked incredibly.
Yeah, I guess so, man. So what about? So you had a lone wolf in there that you had pre-hung right in the summer. Yeah. Give me a little bit about your stand setup here. Like what was was there something that was particularly funneling deer near where that tree you picked out was? What was unique about that tree that made you say that was the tree you needed to be in?
If you look at this scene and situation that it is, I think it used to be an old pig pen farm. Okay. Like years and years and years ago that grew up. Okay. All Russian olives, poplar trees, white oaks, and it's half hardwoods. If you could picture half hardwoods, that goes into a whole line of Russian olives that grew over this fence. And only over this fence is where the Russian olives grew. And they're tall. They're like 15 feet tall, these Russian olives. Right. So the fence that cuts this field, the cedar grass, nice wheat field, and this hardwoods is probably 200 yards long. And the fence has a break in it. In the summer, I found the break, and you find a deer hair in the barbed wire, old barbed wire. And the run that was coming through the break of this fence was insane. Okay. And you could see the deer, creature of habits. They don't want to bust through anything thick if they have to. They'll walk right down a logging road, right. Like we would. Yep. And I said, look at this. I said, this break in this fence is incredible. If I can make my own break on the other side of it, now I'll have two of them for two different shots for two different winds for a dead north wind.
Right.
So I made my own break in the other one, and it worked perfect. I put my stand right in these Russian olives, Lone Wolf Alpha hang on, with tree steps. Hung my rope, got my bow rope all set. My bow bow hanger was up there. I had that all set in the summer, and it was my first time getting in it and sitting in it October 21st in the morning.
Right. So
it was crazy. It was incredible.
That's
I probably
awesome,
saw
man.
20 deer. I'm like, holy crap, they're coming from everywhere.
So what's awesome about that, man, is the one thing I think I want to point out right there is a lot of times, folks who, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. So a lot of folks talk about habitat management, right, and managing properties and stuff like that. And some folks that, I do some of that on some of the farms. I know John does some of this on his property and stuff like that. But I think, you can build smarter mouse traps, even if it's not land that you own particularly, right? And just use what's there, right? It's not like you have to build something or put something in it. It's like you found an old fence that was dilapidated and it was kind of run down, right? And they had a break in it, and that's where the deer were clearly crossing. And so you just were thinking, hey, if I make another mouse trap here for myself with what's already here and just make sure that there's a place for them to easily get through in a second area, I can have two opportunities to hunt this location. I think it's important for people to kind of hear and kind of take away, because you don't always have to, I'm not condoning someone go down and cut down someone's tree on a piece of property that they don't own. It's not what I'm suggesting, but
hey, it's mine now.
right. But what I'm saying is like, look around, like, I know in one of the places in Ohio, and it was one of the reasons why the deer made the loop that it made around me that I did see that came up to this scrape that I was scrape line I was watching. It was because we, Chad had actually this summer when we were in there doing putting up cameras. We saw where the deer were making their way through, and we knew what tree we wanted to put a stand in, or one of the two trees we wanted to put a stand in, and so we put some brush across where that run was or where that trail was, because we wanted to kick them out to our right and make them have to loop around to give us a shot opportunity, because otherwise they were going to come right up underneath of our stand, and it was going to be a straight on, from behind shot, and you were going to have no shot. So it's just little things like that if you see a situation where you think you have an opportunity to see deer, you can use some things that are naturally around you to create that funnel, to create that opportunity for yourself and build a smarter mousetrap and just tip the odds in your favor that much more. I mean, you're talking 3%, but 3% might be the difference between getting a shot off or not.
Yeah, 15 yards or 40 yards, you want to get them nice and close. And deer are lazy.
Yeah,
deer will take the least resistant area.
Exactly. So I'll get off my soapbox here with the smarter mousetrap bits, and I want to get to the good stuff here. Give me the details. So you get in your stand, you're in the morning, right?
I get in my stand. I'm in there a good hour before again, and I'm excited because I haven't sat it at all this year. It's the first time being sat. The wind was perfect, and in fact, in the dark. I had from the little break in the fence that I made to the right, it was still, I could just make out a deer. And that run comes right to my stand, 15 yards to the right of me, and goes behind me onto a logging road. And now if the deer get on this logging road and continue up and around to head south, that's the bedding area. The bedding area is probably a couple hundred yards away. So this is like their transition from feeding from the public land. They're going to transition in this cedar field, mingle around, and then come through these breaks to get back to the bedding. So they got to go by me if they want to get back to that logging road to get out of there to go back to the bedding.
Right.
So I hear deer kind of walking in the grass in front of me in that cedar field, if you can picture it. And I'm like, all right, I hear deer, and it's light enough that now there's definitely a deer on this run. So as the deer is on the run, I'm like squinting with my eyes, and it's a buck. I can see, holy crap, it's got a rack on it, and I can smell him. Did you ever have a deer under you? You could smell his torso?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I could smell him. I could see the whites on his eyes, and he's just slowly walking like there's no care in the world. And I can actually hear I can hear his feet cracking as he walks by me, going by. It was really cool. So I'm like, all right, that's cool. I don't know if it was a big buck, a small buck. It looked like a big body. So now the sun's coming up, and I just got groups of does pouring into the left. I got groups of does out in the cedar field straight in front of me. Does, like I thought. Wow, they're here. They're unpressured. Definitely unpressured. So I'm going to say, I haven't seen any bucks, just probably 3 or 4 groups of does, some that came in, some are still out in the cedar field. I looked all the way down to the right side of the fence in the cedar field, and I just seen a really nice side of a half of 8 dogging the doe, just a little bit, just nudging her around a little bit. I'm like, oh, all right, there's a buck out there. So I see him out there, so I take my grunt call, and I see him out there with the does, the one side. I give him a nice big grunt, brat, brat, and boy, he stops and looks right at me. I'm like, wow, he took to that, incredible.
Right.
Boy, with that, on the run that the deer came on the dark, like 2 minutes later, he disappeared in the field, and I can't see because of the Russian olives in front of me. Here he comes. He's coming through the break in the fence that I made in the summer, and he's on the run. Now, this is when I passed him. Clint, check this out. So now his right side is his right side. His left side is what I first saw back in the field. Looked like a half of a 120. I want to be real picky. I just don't want to shoot another buck.
Right.
I'm on now. My vacation starts after this Saturday because that was Saturday when I shot him. When Monday comes, I'm on vacation for 4 weeks for the rut.
Right.
And I got 1 buck tag left. I really want to make sure. I want to make it count.
Right.
Well, he comes onto this run, 15 yards. I'm looking at him, and I got my hinge set up. I'm on the loop. I'm turned on my stand, and I'm like, boy, am I going to shoot this? I'm looking at him real quick, and I'm like, I just don't know. So I turned around. I said, let me turn around, and if I'm going to shoot him, I'll shoot him on the other side of my tree. Well, instead of him staying on the run, he walked straight back to that logging road I was telling you about.
Right.
So now I lost my chance. And now I see his other side is palmated with like 10-inch brows and these kickers coming off this big bladed G2. I'm like, oh my gosh, what'd I do? I said, that's a shooter. Like all day, it's a 140-inch buck that's 15 inches wide. I couldn't even believe what I just did. So I said, all right, relax, chill out. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be, you know?
Right.
So now he's on the logging road walking away. I grab the grunt call again. I hit him with a grunt, Barrett, and he just stops. So now I'm watching this buck through the woods on this logging road 50, 60 yards away. Now he stops, and he didn't look back. He's still looking ahead. And then this is what did it. I hit the snort wheeze on my grunt call. I have the Primo's growl with the snort wheeze on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I said, man, I hit that thing. That deer tore a tree up in front of him, looked up to me, and I saw this little cedar tree, like a 5-foot cedar tree, stuck in his rack after I did the snort wheeze. I went, holy crap, here we go. So I reached back for my hinge, and John, you can relate to this because you said you shot the hinge. I'm trying to set it up, getting the ledge under it. I get it on my loop. I look back to where he was, and he's not there anymore. I'm like, what the heck? He's right there. He's right 15 yards on the other run now. And that was it. I said, that's it. You're getting it. I drew back. He stood right there, and he didn't even know he was hit. I double-lunged him perfect. He jumps through the fence break, gets out into the field, 20 yards in front of me, and he's still looking around with his tree in his rack. He's looking around. I just saw a couple drops of blood drip out of his nose, and it was a nice frosty, dewy morning. I saw the smoke coming out of him, and he, 4 seconds later, just tipped over. That's it. I was tagged out before my vacation.
Jeez, man, that's crazy. So dude, that's wild, man. A snort wheeze. So like that boy was jacked up then. Like he was looking for a tussle.
When I shot him, I mean, I know you guys seen it. And you snort wheeze a deer and you get him pissed, or even if they come into a decoy, how they puff up their hair and turn black. They almost look double their size. I shot him puffed up like that. I mean, look at this thing. It's ready to kick someone's ass. If it wasn't for that grunt call or that snort wheeze, I never would have killed him.
Right. So all right, so you got him out in the field. So whenever what were you thinking after you made that shot? Like I know you watched him tip over, but like when you got down, like were you just like, I can't believe this all happened in like a 2-week span of time?
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm again here I am. I got this deer's jowls on my knee. I'm looking at this beautiful brown rack, saying, I'm just saying thank you.
Right.
I mean, it's all a bow hunter can ask for, and it's not that I want to have giant, big, huge racks, and that's all I want to shoot, because I told you before, I'm a hunter at heart, you know?
Right.
But, dude, it's awesome, and what I strive for all summer long, and what I did to change my ways, not to get far away from where I hunt, but just change it up and stick to it, worked quicker than I ever thought.
Right. So I think,
and then if you saw my Instagram post, it keeps working after this.
Yeah, that's the incredible thing is that it wasn't it stopped there. I think the cool thing though is that because this is the thing. It's like, for anyone who out there who has listened to the past podcast that was Rick was on with us, or if you follow him at all, it's like, and I would say this even if you weren't on, but Rick's a damn good hunter. And has had plenty.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It has had plenty of success, and so it'd be really easy to kind of stick with what you've done in the past and what you've known to be true in the past. I think the kind of interesting thing or the key thing is that even though someone, if you're an accomplished hunter or whatever, doesn't mean you can't kind of tweak your situation to try to get better or to make some changes to give yourself some new or better opportunities. Because a lot of guys will get stuck in sitting the same stands year after year because they've had success in those stand locations, And I forget who I heard this from. It might have been, I don't know, it might have been Don Higgins or someone like that I was listening to or reading something from one day. And it was a quote from one of them that basically said, it was basically talking about guys getting stuck and sitting in a particular stand because they shot a deer out of it last year. He's like, your best stand is always your next one. He's like, and you have to have, whoever said that, it was like, that's the mentality you have to have, is that your next stand is going to be the best one you sit all year. And that you can't get stuck in going back to the well over and over again, especially if you want to progress. And I think that it's cool that you were able to do that because these are areas that you know pretty well. You've had success in some areas, not necessarily the particular areas that you hunted this year, but some areas around there. So it'd been really easy for you to fall back into those places and just say, hey, I'm going to take whatever, I kind of know what's going to play out here possibly, and maybe what I want to happen will happen, but maybe it won't. So I think that's the thing that I'm listening to you and kind of taking away from it is that be aggressive, make your move when you think the move's there to be made. And that was something I learned the hard way this year. Is I don't think I was aggressive enough when I was in Ohio, and and sometimes roll the dice and you'll be rewarded.
Yep, without a doubt.
Nice. So let me ask you this, man. So with the success you had this year, right? So things went well. First, before we do that, so John, what are you thinking, man? Like that's a pretty solid October.
That's one for the storybooks, man. And to have those experiences the way he did, opening morning, to have a snort wheeze, respond. I did a snort wheeze last year here in Iowa on a mega giant buck, and I learned, unfortunately, that was not the right call to make at that time for that deer. Didn't have enough history with the deer, didn't know the deer's body language, didn't know if he was the boss buck, if he was a fighter or he was a lover or whatever. And turns out he didn't like my snort wheeze and he ran away, and I never saw that deer again. But the snort wheeze is like, everybody's grunted at a deer. We've rattled a deer in a time or two. A snort wheeze doesn't happen that often. And I don't know if it's just a law of averages where a lot of people, they don't go to that call or they don't use it. But it takes an aggressive deer to respond to that. And you acknowledge that you had a buck, and you threw the call at him and it worked. And that's awesome. I love snort wheeze stories. I think it's so awesome. And like you said, when they look almost black and all their hair standing up, man, that's the coolest thing.
They tip their ears back. They start licking their nose. They walk sideways with their head tilted. You can't.
Oh, yeah.
On my back of that.
Yeah, that is so cool.
Give me a 150 coming in sideways, ready to get lit up.
That's right. Yeah.
Nice. So, man, so what I was starting to say before was, with all the success you've had this year, what are you thinking for next year? Do you have you started already kind of formulating plans for next year? Like, how are you planning to change things up? Is there anything you want to tweak for next year? So, because I know you made some tweaks this year, like, what are you thinking for this coming year?
Well, the tweaks that I made this year worked so great in the beginning. How can I not try to duplicate them on that note?
Yeah.
But now that I already filled my tags, and I don't know if you saw my Instagram code, my Instagram, I had brought my friend Troy and put him in one of my stands that I had hung just for the rut. A new stand, new place, new stand, and he shot a beautiful 130-inch buck, his biggest buck ever.
Nice.
And now I've been sitting in stands that I worked on all summer long, that I got ready for the rut. Finding all sorts of scrapes, really nice scrape transition, primary trails, nice sheds, And I told you, in the past, I'd hunt too many stands too much, and that's what I wanted to change. Instead of saying, I'm going here today, I'm going here, now it's not working, I'm going to this one, in a week I'd be in 12 different stands.
Right.
I wanted to pick 3 or 4 stands for the beginning and the pre-rut, and 3 or 4 stands for the rut, and really stick them out. From the information I gathered in the spring, from shed hunting and really, really walking the woods, for hours, and really taking my time. And I haven't even sat my 2 favorite stands that I set this year for the rut. I haven't even sat in them yet.
Nice.
I'm probably not good at sitting them yet.
Right. Yeah, I hear that, man.
Yeah.
So hey, man, I wanna be sensitive to your time. That I know it's getting later here in the evening, but I want to say thank you for hopping on and sharing both of those stories. Well, before we do that, man, what did this one end up scoring? If you don't mind me asking, did you rough score this guy too?
I roughed it it was 137.
Okay.
And we're going to do it again when he comes back. Also, we're going to do it. It's right around high 130s, 140s.
Nice. That's awesome, man.
15 with a 15-inch spread. It's really really unique. How it's not wide at all, but it's got a lot of mass, big points.
Yeah.
Nice brow tines. It's a real high rack.
Chocolate tines too. The color of the rack's just awesome.
Yeah. The body on this buck was tremendous. It dressed out 207.
Nice. That's a big boy. Got a little meat on his bones.
Yeah, man.
So now I'll be sensitive to your time. Sorry, I was insensitive to it and asked one more question. But hey, man, thanks for coming on and sharing the story, dude. I always like having you on. I always like trading text messages with you and talking to you, man. You get me fired up and make me want to go hunt, dude. It's like I ever need a pep talk, man. If anyone ever needs a pep talk, man, just get a hold of Rick Kiely, man. He'll get you all stoked up and ready to go and turn your season around. Hey,
thanks for having me, Clint. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet, man. We'll talk again soon, man. Take care. And if I don't talk to you beforehand, you have an awesome holiday and enjoy your time with the family.
Yes, sir. You too. You also, John.
Thank you. Yeah, man. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Thank you.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. We'd like to thank Rick for joining us. And before we shut this thing down, I want to give you a quick reminder to be sure to enter for a chance to win the Exodus Lift 2 trail camera. All you have to do is go to truthfromthestand.com and go to the About page and sign up for our email newsletter. You can also submit this form through the sign up button on the Truth from the Stand Facebook page. Once we receive 200 entries, we'll draw the winner and deliver the goods. So with that, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes if you haven't already. And last but not least, we want to thank all of you for listening. And finally, I need to give a big shout out to our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. Whitetail Institute of North America, Exodus Outdoor Gear, and the Lone Wolf Portable Tree Stands. And until next time, we'll see you.
I ain't welcome anymore. A long time coming, if it all. It takes a special knowing to color for damaged heads, broken letters. Rationalize yourself in numbers, but I gotta